It's going to convert that ammonia into urea. And cats are super sensitive to this. As we know, cats and their kidneys are not good friends on the best of days. Their kidneys are always kind of on the verge. So if they are deficient in arginine, they'll go into irreversible kidney damage. So cats do need higher amounts of arginine than dogs do. And it's just one more reason why you cannot feed cats like they are little dogs. You cannot feed them dog food. Because if dogs are not having the necessity for the higher arginine, of course it's not going to be in the food. We're only going to put what they need into the diet. So you need to feed the cat food, which sounds common sensey, but you would be surprised. I did post, if you didn't see it, on the All VTI cohort page. Oh my God, it made me giggle so hard. This technician just recorded like as if she was talking to clients. And oh, I was busting out loud. She's like, oh, you don't have your pet on heartworm prevention because he doesn't go outside? So he poops in the house? Oh my God, it was hilarious. Absolute. So go back and take a look because it was funny. The reason I bring that up is because you are inevitably going to have a conversation at some point with someone. You need to feed your cat food. I don't know. Yes, I did. I was triumphant against the wasp. Just this morning, I killed it while I was in a director's meeting with Mr. Hamilton. Like, be right back. Got my chunka, boom, got it. It was awesome. Although now I'm a little worried. I'm hearing something else. I'm thinking there might be another one, but I'm going to worry about that later. All right, so this group of amino acids work together and have very similar jobs. So leucine, isoleucine, and valine. These are going to help prevent muscle atrophy. Now, what muscle atrophy is where your body starts breaking down skeletal muscle. Essentially, where did my pen go? If you don't use it, there it is. If you don't use it, you lose it. But what can also happen is if you are amino acid deficient, this is the only place you can get it. So what this group of amino acids is going to try and do is help to shift the protein balance towards more anabolism or to build up. The other important thing, and as I said yesterday, what I've done with this amino acids, because I know it's a lot of information, I have gone through, although it's all important, we're going to go over it all. Sorry, I've got something in my eye. Ow. Sorry, Maisie, am I in your way? So, okay, this is actually very cute. So do you remember a million years ago, those of you that were in a tutoring session, we were going over the planes of the body. I was doing a review of the planes and I had that big puffy stuffed dog and I used tape to tape out the planes. Well, it got thrown just on the floor beside me. And I have to show you this. This is really adorable. So Maisie has decided that puffy dog toy is the perfect dog bed. And so she now comes and lays beside me while I'm lecturing for the last couple of days on the puffy dog. She thinks it's a dog bed. So there's your cuteness for today. Yeah, she's very nice and comfy. And I don't know why she's insisting. Usually she's in her chair. But this little, she's got, oh my God, for a house that has 2 dogs, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, I have 6 dog beds in my house. And that's not including furniture. That's just dog beds. She's decided puffy dog is her place of choice. So, All right, so yesterday we were also talking a little bit about, Monster and the energy drinks and how are they giving you energy without the caffeine. Obviously, I'm a caffeine person. I like getting my energy from caffeine. But the Monster drinks, all of those energy drinks, basically what they have in them is, these two amino acids, lysine and methionine. And these two amino acids, okay, so we have two individual Legos, and when these two Legos snap together, they create a new structure called carnitine. Now, what this carnitine, and if you drink Monster drinks, I know some of you were like, oh yeah, I like the Monster drinks. They're so bad for you. They're so bad for you, but I get it. You know, you do you. You're adults. You can figure it out. But if you look on the can, those drinks have carnitine in them, which is simply these two amino acids that have been bound together. And what carnitine does is it helps your body break down and utilize fat. That's what's giving you the energy. So it's a non-caffeinated energy. You're just simply taking in this non-essential. It's non-essential because our bodies can create it for ourselves. But what this carnitine does is it's going to turn fat into fuels. And so that's kind of how it works. The downside to all of that Monster drinking is that when you do break down fat, stored fat into fuel, you are releasing our ketones. Remember, we went all over this. We went into just dietary ketones, diabetic ketones. And if you're ingesting a lot of carnitine and you're breaking down a large volume of fat for energy, you're going to end up with that ketoacidosis. And that can cause some kidney issues. And that's why they say if you drink a lot of these energy drinks, you are at risk for kidney issues because of this ketoacidosis. Carnitine also helps out with reproduction. It can be assembled in the liver. So where we have these two Legos, lysine and methionine, they're going to be reassembled in the liver into these carnitines. And so if you do eat liver, liver is a wonderful source of these nutrients as well as carnitine. I don't like liver myself, but if you do, you're getting some wonderful health benefits. Now, on its own, lysine, come on, pen. What's wrong with my pen? Pen. It won't write on that one spot. That's weird. There we go. Lysine, just on its own, we have been doing research and it has shown some benefits in combating herpes in cats. Now, as we said yesterday, this herpes is different than the herpes that you all are thinking about. This is not genital herpes. This is not that herpes where you have the cold sore and you're like, oh, it's just a cold sore. No, we all know you've got herpes. You got the herpes. This herpes in cats manifests as a respiratory infection. And any kind of respiratory issue in cats is super dangerous because obviously, number one, you can't breathe. And number two, cats are dependent on their sense of smell in order to eat. Cats will not eat what they cannot smell. And if they have a respiratory infection, that starts to inhibit their sense of smell. The cat will go anorexic. Now we are not taking in the energy needed for health and tissue repair and healing. But now remember, cats cannot effectively break down their own stored tissue. They become at risk for the hepatic lipidosis. So if we can combat and have benefit with something natural, like this, giving them this lysine, that can help to combat that herpes virus. The other thing that lysine does, this is actually really cool. It is very, very sensitive to heat. So you can kind of deactivate it very easily by cooking it. Now, obviously, that's not a good thing. But what that does mean is because it is so sensitive, we can use it to determine the proper cooking for certain foods. We don't want to cook the foods at a temperature and for a time that's going to degrade all of the nutrients, making them unavailable to you. That's kind of not the point. We want to cook stuff so that it's safe for us to eat, but that all the nutrients are still available. And because this lysine is so sensitive, we can use that as a tracer. And it's one of the things that we check when we are establishing safe cooking temperature and times. If we've degraded the lysine, we know that it's too hot too long. And if we can cook the food so that we have minimized the bacteria, but still have the lysine in a form that our body can use, that's the sweet spot. And so that's how I always wondered that until I started teaching this class. That was one of the things that I was always kind of, I would ponder. I go into my recipe and it says cook it at this time for this long. How do they know? How do they know? This is how they know. This one's fun to say. This is called phenylalanine. And whenever I hear this, it reminds me, now most of you probably won't remember this. There was a cartoon back in the 80s called The Smurfs. And you probably are watching it now on Nickelodeon. It was one of those Saturday morning cartoons where me and my sister would get up and get our cereal, and we would run down into the basement because we had basements, and into the rec room, and we would watch The Smurfs. It was one of our Saturday morning regulars. And this word, this phenylalanine, always reminds me a little bit of the song that the Smurfs used to sing. So does anybody remember the song that the Smurfs used to sing? Oh, come on, somebody does. It wasn't even a song, it was just sounds.
I think I remember it, but I don't remember the tune of it. I just remember la 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 la.
Yes. La 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 la. Yeah.
Yes.
And this amino acid with the la in the middle has always reminded me a little bit about the Smurfs. And Smurfs are blue. And this whole scenario, I know you guys are like, what? Stop talking about Smurfs. This whole thing reminding me Smurfs. Smurfs are blue. Smurfs have a very particular pigment to their skin. This LALA helps with melanin production. It helps with skin color. Now, obviously, we're not turning ourselves blue, but if you see the LALA, think of the Smurf, think of the color of the skin, and that will help you remember that it is imperative for this hormone that controls skin color. Now, where we really see phenylalanine being supplemented in the diets is with breeders. Especially feline breeders. Feline breeders are slightly insane. They are the bane of our existence. If we have a pointed cat, so down here, this picture, this cat, his color, if you remember back from your behavior class, this is a seal point, meaning that the more contrast we have between the lights and the darks, the higher the quality the coat, the higher the quality the cat is going to be. Now, what I can do during that formative developmental time, while the kitten is growing and coming into its points, because you know, they're not usually fully pointed when they're born, right? You might have some subtle points, but they don't reach their maximum point until they have aged a bit. And so what you'll see these breeders doing, and it is illegal, I mean, you can do it, is they will begin supplementing this phenylalanine in greater amounts in the kitten food. And what that's going to do is help to promote more melanin production, and it's going to promote a much darker coloration in these points. So that's a phenylalanine. It's going to really help to darken up those points. And obviously the darker the points, the higher quality the cat, especially if you're dealing with, you know, champions and show cats. You want that very, very dramatic difference in the points. The other thing that phenylalanine does, and I find this one kind of interesting, is it helps to also produce some other hormones. So melanin is a hormone, colors your skin. But we also have some things that assist our nervous system. We have adrenaline, we have noradrenaline, which is also known as epinephrine and norepinephrine. And we also have this dopamine. And dopamine is super important for the transmission of nerve impulses. It's also a kind of a mood stabilizer. But essentially its primary function is when I think a thought and I perform an action, dopamine is one of the nerve receptors, one of the neurotransmitters. Remember that our nerves are social distancing. The nerves in our nervous system, social distance. They don't want to touch anybody. There's a little gap in between one nerve and the other. And depending on the message that I'm trying to send, that will determine what kind of neurotransmitter I'm going to use to send across the space. Dopamine happens to be one of those neurotransmitters. So if I don't have it, it means that I cannot transmit a message from my brain to my body. There was a very, I don't know how famous it was. There was a pretty great movie. If you need something to do over this long weekend, it's a Robin Williams movie. It was one of his first serious roles. And it was specifically referring to the inability to produce dopamine. And so basically it was, what was it called? Awakenings. And spoiler alert. So there's, he's a doctor in this hospital, and all of these patients don't have the ability to create dopamine. And so what they start doing is they start experimenting with giving synthetic dopamine. They also started experimenting with initially giving increased amounts of this amino acid. That didn't work. And so they started giving synthetic dopamine. Well, what was kind of happening with these parents? They called them the vegetable garden because they couldn't move. But the terrifying for me thing for me is they were all completely aware of their surroundings. It was not like they were comatose. They could hear, they could feel, they just couldn't react. That's terrifying to me. That's absolutely terrifying. That's probably one of the most terrifying things I could possibly think of. Well, once they started giving this dopamine, suddenly they woke up and they were able to move and they were able to interact with their environment. And so it's a pretty great movie. So if you want something to do, it's an old one with Robin Williams. I mean, but it's not funny. It's one of his first serious roles. But it just kind of demonstrates how important this dopamine is for our appropriate functioning. And it all comes back to the Smurf amino acid. I love this one. All right, so the next one is taurine. Taurine, we've talked about this. Taurine is essential in the cat. Cats need taurine. They cannot produce it for themselves. Now, dogs can. Dogs do not need taurine, or at least not to the same degree. Cats need a significant amount of taurine in their diets. And if they don't have it, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to go blind. And then they're going to start having heart issues. Specifically, we're using our medical terminology, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Wow, that's a big word. Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. Hyper meaning excessive, trophic, formation of, cardio, the heart, myo, the muscle, opathy, condition of. And so basically what starts happening, you can see down here, this is a normal heart. You can see here the thickness of the chambers. There's the very thick left chamber. Here's the less thick right chamber. And look at the difference here. It's excessive formation of the heart muscle. Now, just because the heart muscle is bigger, that does not mean that it's stronger. I know that does work for our guns. When they're bigger, they're stronger. But here, what we've actually done is look, here is the chamber. This is all the space in the chamber that we have for blood. We have actually minimized the amount of space, and the heart is having to pump harder to push less blood out. So this is what's going to cause the hypoxia, exercise intolerance, syncope, all of the above. I have seen a taurine deficiency. Luckily, the commercial diets have taken all of the guesswork out of it for us. If it's a complete and balanced diet for that species, it has every nutrient that they need to sustain themselves nutritionally. So we really don't have to worry about it. Where I did see it, I think I told you guys about this yesterday, I had a little old lady in practice who was eating, she was on a kind of a, I guess, a fixed budget, and she was eating tuna fish pretty much for every meal. And what she was doing is she was feeding the tuna fish as a primary source of nutrition to her cats. Well, taurine is not found in tuna, and both of the cats went blind. So we were able to stop it, get them back on the taurine. Now, you cannot reverse the blindness, but we were able to prevent the cardiomyopathy by getting her on a higher quality cat food. And yeah, so we all got her on some cat food. Sweet cats, but yeah, they both went blind. The only place that we can find this taurine is in animal tissue. Again, the reason why cats are obligate carnivores. They cannot get this taurine from plant material. And so they have to have that animal-based protein in order to get this amino acid. What else did I want to say? Oh, it also helps the liver to produce bile. All right, so bile is what helps our digestive system break down certain nutrients. In fact, bile helps to break down certain sugars. Now, the liver is what produces the bile salts. The bile salts are then shipped to the gallbladder. The gallbladder concentrates those bile salts, and then we have a duct that can send those bile salts to our digestive system to help with the breakdown of these sugars. If you don't have these bile salts, you can't break down the sugars. So some of you may either have had this happen to yourself or know a loved one that has had it. You have your gallbladder removed. You've had some gallstones, you have to get your gallbladder removed. Suddenly your diet has to change. Things like there are certain fruits that you're not allowed to eat anymore because you can't break down the sugars. And so it's taurine that's going to help the liver produce these bile salts in a normal, healthy animal. The other thing it's going to do is help calcium flow in and out of the cells. We know from our muscle lecture that we covered at the end of anatomy class that the flowing of calcium kind of important. If we don't have calcium flood into the cell, then we can't contract a muscle fiber. And so all of that comes back to taurine and its assistance in our body's ability to do it. histidine, threonine, and tryptophan. And actually, tryptophan is probably the only amino acid that you've heard of before. These three are going to aid in growth and development. And so we are going to see a much higher percentage of these three amino acids in our growth diets. Young animals are growing and developing, and so they're going to need higher amounts of these three amino acids in order to accomplish that. Histidine, this guy, also helps with wound healing, but it's also, most importantly, a precursor to something called a histamine, right? So why is that important? Well, basically what histamines are, I'm not going to go into the whole immunology of it, but basically what histamines are throughout your body, you have these little beacons. And so when your body determines there is something amiss, there is a possible stranger danger, it has these different types of beacons. And depending on the type of beacon we illuminate, that tells the immune system what kind of assault to launch. So this histamine, basically, we've been walking around, we're the warriors of the body, and we'll see something. Now, histamines, they're usually the beacon that are really going to launch, on average, a relatively small assault, although they can go bat crap crazy. Just depends on how many beacons. So where have we heard the word histamine? We've heard this in relation to allergies. So when I breathe in pine pollen, and the pine pollen gets stuck in my sinuses, and my immunity GR00T, unfortunately, has a card for pine pollen. My immunity GR00T has established that pine pollen is a stranger danger. And so what happens is my little warriors now have this wanted poster for pine pollen. And they see pine pollen and they start illuminating all of these beacons. They start putting all of these histamines. That's going to help direct my immune system to the area. And the more beacons I have, the more severe the assault is going to be. So it is the actual, my body's immune system coming to fight the war that gives me the pressure and the snot and the headache and the watery eyes. Pine pollen's not doing any of that. That's my body's reaction to the pine pollen. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take something to deactivate or to turn off the beacons. I am going to take what? An antihistamine. And basically all an antihistamine does is it goes in and it turns off all the beacons. And so when my body starts launching an assault, suddenly there's no beacons and he's like, okay, well, we must not have stranger danger. And then I don't have any of the symptoms that would have been caused by my body launching an assault. Hang on, I gotta turn my AC down. I'm getting all excited and fired up talking about immunology. I gotta mute myself, although I've scrolled through and I can't find. Okay, I did not want to activate any of your she who shall not be named. Yeah, you've got dust mites, really anything. You can be allergic to anything. And so it is this histidine, which is an amino acid, that helps to have your body produce these little beacons that would then establish the immune response. Now, sometimes, holy smokes, like you could have where I eat a peanut and oh my God, every beacon in your body goes and stranger danger, stranger danger. And your immune system goes, oh my God, send everybody. And suddenly all my blood vessels dilate and all the blood rushes and all the white blood cells go. And guess what happens? I start to swell up. and I swell and I swell, and it starts occluding my throat, my pharynx. My pharynx has swollen, and it's occluding the opening of my trachea, and I die. Wow, that got dramatic, didn't it? So this amino acid is the key to all of it. This guy right here is the one that you've probably all heard of because of this. Tryptophan. Now, I gotta stick up for tryptophan here for just a second, because you're all eating your turkey dinner at Thanksgiving. We love it. I get 2, although I'm not sure if I'm gonna have 2 this year. I'm gonna have at least 1. I usually get 2 Thanksgivings. What? Heck yeah. I get a Thanksgiving in October, and then I get another one in November. Just saying. Anyway, so then you eat all the turkey, and then you go into a turkey coma, and you're like, oh, it's the tryptophan. The tryptophan has made me so sleepy. No, quit blaming tryptophan. He's a scapegoat, and he's not having it anymore. He's not having it anymore. Tryptophan is not to blame. Your gluttonous appetite is to blame. You ate too much. You ate too much. Tryptophan has nothing to do with it. Your blood is now being diverted to your gut. Your parasympathetic nervous system has been initiated. You're going to go to sleep because you've diverted all of your blood to your gut to provide the energy, as well as to provide the transportation for all of these nutrients that you just took in. Don't blame tryptophan. Stop blaming tryptophan. Does tryptophan have sedative properties? Yes. I admit tryptophan does. However, the only way that tryptophan is going to give you sedative properties is if you take it on an empty stomach without any other amino acids. Is tryptophan the only amino acids you're going to get in this delicious turkey dinner? Of course not. No. So unless you're taking a tryptophan tablet on an empty stomach with nothing else, then yeah, you might get a mild sedative. Quit blaming him because you're sleepy after Thanksgiving Day. Don't blame him anymore. Don't blame him anymore. It's not his fault. It is not his fault. Tryptophan, what does he do? I mean, we all know, we all used to know or think he was the one that made us sleepy, but no. Here's what tryptophan actually does. He is going to produce neurotransmitters, serotonin and melatonin. Now, I need you to make a distinction right now between melatonin and melanin. They sound the same, 2 different things. Melanin controls the skin. That's going to control pigmentation. Melatonin is a neurotransmitter. Serotonin and melatonin are mood stabilizers. They help to stabilize anxiety. They help to minimize cortisol production. They help even you out. That's what tryptophan is going to do. It is the amino acid that is going to be the precursor in the creation of these neurotransmitters.
Melatonin does all of those, or is it one specifically that it does more?
So tryptophan is pretty much going to do all of this. Tryptophan is going to convert into both of these neurotransmitters. And honestly, it just depends on your body's needs. Some days it may create more serotonin. Some days it may create more melatonin. It's just not making you sleepy. Just quit blaming him for that. Only had 1 turkey for Thanksgiving once. Jennifer, you only have ever had 1 Thanksgiving ever in your life?
I've only ever had turkey for Thanksgiving once in my entire life. And it wasn't even my family's Thanksgiving, it was my boyfriend's family's Thanksgiving.
Oh. Well, so for the Canadian Thanksgiving, which I celebrate with my family, which is in October, we don't normally do turkey. we do roast beef. My mom does a lovely medium rare roast beef with the Anjou and the popovers, which is like a Yorkshire pudding. It's like a very kind of a foamy bread. It's delicious. And then we do the full Turkey Day turkey. My significant other and I in November. And it's just the two of us, but we'll get the turkey and the fixins and the rolls and the potatoes and the hash brown casserole and the whole thing. And we'll just nosh on that for like 3 days. It's fabulous. But yeah, so I only do turkey once. We do roast beast.
You know, it just depends on what we feel like. We'll make pozole or cabrito or something, but I've only ever had turkey once.
No, I don't know any of the words that just came out of your mouth.
So cabrito is baby goat, and you kind of, it just depends on how you cook it. But and then pozole is like this, like it's with pork. It's like, it's not a soup, but it's not a stew either. I don't know, it's kind of weird to explain, but it's got like hominy grains in it and stuff. It's really good.
Okay, I don't
There's been a
judge.
couple times we've made enchiladas, but that was it.
Huh. Okay. Sounds interesting. Sounds very interesting. All of these different foods for Thanksgiving. Although truly, as long as you're, you know, gorging yourself, it doesn't matter with what. It doesn't matter with what. All right, guys, here's your words to live by. Sleep till you're hungry, eat till you're sleepy. It's kind of, I think, what we've all been doing in this quarantine. I know that's what I've been doing. And that concludes our protein and amino acids. So as we decided very democratically, I must say, this test will not be over your long weekend. I've decided that you're all right. You guys need a break. You guys need some time just to have some wind down, not see my face all the time. So we will not be opening this test until Tuesday. And then that test, just like normal, I'll open it Tuesday at 3. It'll close Wednesday at 7. And then I'll remind you on Tuesday. But and we'll do some review on Tuesday. Now, today we are going to start talking a little bit about some of the non-energy producing nutrients. We've now covered the 3 energy. Now we're going to do the 3 non-energy. None of this is going to be on the test next week. But what it does mean is you're probably going to have 2 tests next week, one over protein and one over water and vitamins. But I'll make sure that they're staggered apart, and I'll try and make sure that you don't have any other tests when I schedule them. We may even do the water vitamins, you know, over next weekend. I don't know. We'll figure that out as we get there.
You know what? You said we were reviewing Tuesday. We don't have you till Wednesday.
Oh, I keep forgetting that I don't get to see you guys on Mondays and Tuesdays. I think it's Doug just with wishful thinking. Doug has wishful thinking that he'll get to see you. So you're right. We won't be able to review. So we can spend a few minutes now reviewing if you want. Although honestly, I've covered everything that could possibly be on the test. We've been kind of doing review as we've been going on. So on that amino acids, just the testable material is highlighted in red. So I will send you though, I'm gonna make myself open Tuesday and email students to remind. So I'll email you on Tuesday and remind you that the test will be open on Tuesday through Wednesday.
I was saying how every time I try to give myself a break to relax and chill, I end up picking up a note, a book, going through something, and I was like, my sister was like, "Dang, you just closed your laptop. Why you open it again 30 minutes later?" I was like, "I don't know, like, I just keep feeling like something just gonna pop up. You never know." I'm just like, it's getting serious. It's
I
getting
force myself to relax, but then the whole time I'm worried about what I'm not studying, so I don't actually relax, but I also don't study, so it's just
I swear. It's like even when we like go to like the store, I'm like got my PowerPoints on my phone. And I'm like, what's going on? Like what's happening to me? What is happening? This is like not normal.
You know, stress yourself out like that.
I forgot how to chill. I forgot how to chill.
You forgot how to chill. That's funny. Yeah, I'm the same way. And I'm doing this, I'm doing Moodle, I'm doing all of that VTI stuff. And then I go sit for a minute, and then I go and do all my schoolwork. I have my very first test today, and I'm super nervous. So this guy is hard. He's grading so hard. I did my second essay. I only got a 90 again. And apparently, oh my God, I'm pausing this. So apparently, all right. So none of this material that I'm about to go over is going to be on the protein test. This is going to be new information, and we are going to go ahead and combine water and vitamins together. They're very, very short PowerPoints, so it kind of works to our benefit to combine these two chapters into one test. Oops, I gotta move this. Come here, go over here. All right. So water is a non-energy producing nutrient, meaning that in itself does not produce energy. However, in order for your body to use the energy producing nutrients that we've just covered, the proteins, the fats, and the carbohydrates, water is imperative. Water is the catalyst for you using those nutrients. If we don't have the non-energy producing nutrients, we can't use the energy producing nutrients. So although these don't produce energy on their own, they are imperative for facilitating the body's use of the energy producing nutrients. Now, water is the most important of all of the nutrients. Water is, if I teach you nothing else, the most important. Us, dogs, cats, we are water carbon-based beings. In fact, about, I would say 60-65% of our entire makeup, water. And when we start getting that off balance, if you start getting either dehydrated or overhydrated, overhydration is just as dangerous as dehydration. You're going to start to see system effect on the systems. So water, super duper important. And it's also the catalyst for every chemical reaction within your body. Water is also the largest and the heaviest component of your body. So dehydration, especially in our sick and compromised patients, super dangerous, super dangerous. So when you start looking at the cascade of things that can happen in the dehydrated pet, holy smokes, you know, it's not just that you're thirsty, it's that now your kidneys don't have the blood pressure needed to effectively filter out toxins. Your liver doesn't have the pressure to effectively receive nutrients to convert to glucose. Your blood no longer has the fluid portion, making it very thick like sludge, which means your heart has to work much harder to pump this sludge through your blood vessels. All of that's because of water. So that's why hydration levels are one of the very first things that we triage. We need to make sure that if this animal has a hydration issue, that we address that immediately. Placing an IVC, IV catheter, intravenous catheter, hooking them up to the appropriate fluids, and making sure that we are establishing and regulating that blood pressure and replenishing the fluids. So here's the functions of water. Water is going to affect the blood pressure. Again, blood is a liquid tissue. Blood is fluid and cells. And if we take away the fluid, all we're left with are cells. And it's going to get super thick, super sludgy. Think of like a car that hasn't had the oil changed in years. Super, super sludgy. And that's going to affect the pressure on the inside of the blood vessels. It's also going to affect how hard does the heart have to pump in order to move it. Water is a thermoregulator for your body temperature. It's going to help to regulate that core temperature. It's going to transport solutes and gases, and it's going to initiate every chemical reaction. It's going to lubricate your joints and your eyes. So when have you ever been, okay, so you all live in Texas, which means you've all been dehydrated. Okay, everyone who's lived in Texas has been dehydrated at some point. You go to the beach, you're doing yard work, you're doing something outside, and suddenly it's a Texas rite of passage that you become dehydrated. You come inside, you're overheated, you have a thudding headache, your joints feel stiff, and your eyes kind of feel like there's sand in them. They don't feel well lubricated. That's all dehydration. And so that's its effect on the lubrication of the eyes. And then of course, in our freely movable joints, our diarthrosis joints, we have synovial fluid. That's the oil that keeps the Tin Man moving. And so it's going to be water as the primary ingredient in that synovial fluid. Water is also going to help balance out our electrolytes. Now, what are electrolytes? Electrolytes are molecules that carry and conduct electricity. So we have things like sodium, chloride, potassium, calcium. All of these are considered electrolytes, and water is going to help balance that. Water is essential for the absorption of water-soluble vitamins. We are going to talk about our vitamins. And yes, I say it, vitamins, get over it. We have two different categories. We had our fat-soluble vitamins that we talked about a little bit when we were talking about fats, but we also have our water-soluble. And the water-soluble vitamins are going to be our vitamin B. This is actually B complex, meaning that there's a whole bunch of others that are included in this category. And then vitamin C, which we all know is an immunity booster. It is an antioxidant, super important within the body. But without water, we can't use them. Finally, water is going to be used by our organs to maintain their function, specifically our kidneys. Holy smokes. Kidneys are dependent on having that sweet spot in the blood pressure. It's not too high, it's not too low. If you think about the kidneys like an old school coffee maker, not the Keurigs that all the kids are using these days, I'm talking about a good old fashioned Mr. Coffee. And what you had to do is you had to put the coffee into the filter, you put that into the machine, you filled the machine up with water, and it would filter through the coffee through the filter and give you a lovely cup of coffee. Well, now imagine that's your kidney. So now imagine that I've put in my coffee and I only put a drip of water into the machine. Yeah, that's not going to make good coffee. That's not going to work at all. Or on the other hand, if I have too high of a blood pressure, I now fill up the coffee maker with a fireman's hose. Burst it apart. That's the same thing with my kidneys and my nephrons. Nephrons are the functional unit of my kidneys. She's still down there on that puffy dog. I don't, you have so many other places to go. You have so many other places you could be right now, but you have to be right under my feet. Try not to roll over her with my chair. There. So having the perfect sweet spot is going to ensure that our nephrons, yeah, she's once, I don't know why she's being so needy. She's never wanted to be by me before. I think she just likes the pillow. I'm willing to bet if I move the pillow, she'll take off with it. She's really pretty ambivalent towards me. We're roommates. She's my roommate. We're buddies. She's not my dog. I don't possess her. She just kind of tolerates me. She's more of a cat than a dog. She does. She just kind of looks at me. And honestly, every now and then she'll look at me like, why are you still here? When are you leaving? Because you've been here a lot and it's starting to wear on me a little bit. And I'm like, girlfriend, I'll pay for this house. When you get a job and you start making rent, then you can start ordering me around. But no, she does. She just kind of looks at me like, seriously, you're here again today? Didn't you used to have somewhere to go every day? No, she's very irritated with me, Brittany. She is. She's very irritated that I'm here all day. She is not happy about it. Poppy is ecstatic. Poppy thinks it's the greatest thing ever. Every time I get up to, see, I'm talking about her, and that's why she's named, well, her name is Poppet, but she pounces, she jumps. When she gets super excited, she jumps like a bunny. So she pops. She thinks it's great that I'm here all day. Maisie's just over it. She's like, seriously, you have got to go somewhere for a while. You just need to get out. She tolerates me. But not my popster, huh? Popster? Popster? Well, she's just tolerating me today too. I'm a burden in my own home, guys. Yeah, you better be thankful because no one else is going to fill up your food bowl. Anyway, that's enough of that. So here's some fun facts about water. Water is going to make up about 84% of the weight of a newborn puppy. Really, puppies are more water than anything else. Now, as they age, as they mature, the adult dog, about 50 to 60% of their body weight is going to be attributed to water. Now, this is what we call a dosage. So this is the recommended amount of water that dogs and cats should drink each day. They should receive 30 milliliters per pound of body weight per 24-hour period. Now, am I measuring out the water in their bowl? No, of course not. Although I'm home all day, so I can tell if they're drinking more, drinking less. I know when Poppy, the bowl is too low, because you remember, Poppy's the one that the bowl has to have like a meniscus of water before she'll drink out of it. And if it's even down a tiny bit, she'll just stand there and glare at me. And so then I know, and I have to fill it up to where it's like literally coming up over the sides. Yeah. See who's going to do that for you if I don't come back. I've gotten a little spiky about this now. I'm not measuring it out. Where this dosage is going to come in, important is when you have a clinical patient. When you have a patient who you do need to ensure that they are either ingesting, usually ingesting, because there are other calculations if we're doing IV fluids. So we want to make sure, and so we can measure it out. We can, in a 12-hour shift, measure out, put that amount of water in their bowl, and make sure that they're drinking an appropriate amount. How do we lose water from our bodies? Well, the biggest one obviously is urine. You're going to be urinating out. Now, the interesting thing about our bodies, though, is everything in our bodies is set up. Sorry, my sweater is crinkled under my leg. Everything in my body is set up to hang on to and recycle as much water and nutrients as I possibly can. So all of our blood, everything from our body goes to our kidneys. And actually, 100% of your blood goes through your kidneys about every 4 to 7 minutes. So every 4 to 7 minutes, every drop of blood in your entire body has filtered through your kidneys. And what your kidneys do is they're kind of the hoarders of the body. They are completely set up to retain nutrients, minerals, and water. And only about 1% of everything that gets filtered through the kidneys is determined to be waste. So when you urinate, that's only representing 1% of what the kidneys filtered. So they're pretty great at their job. We're also going to lose some water in our feces. Now, obviously, if you have a dog with diarrhea, they're losing far more water than what they would normally lose. But in our normal healthy animal, in our normal healthy person, you want to have a little bit of water because that's what's going to make the feces a little bit softer, a little easier to pass. Now, remember, when our waste gets to our colon, it's liquid. It's water. And it is the colon's job, just like the kidneys, to recycle and pull out the excess water and solidify the feces. So it's the colon's job to recycle the water from the nutritional waste. We still lose a little bit, though. We're going to lose water from our skin and our lungs. Now, I'm not talking about sweat, okay? I'm sweating right now. I'm losing water through my sweat glands. Where I'm talking insensible means these are losses that you are not consciously aware of. So, like specifically your lungs. COVID, I hear this word a million times a day. And we know that when we breathe out, we are breathing out water droplets, right? If you've ever gone into a cold environment, it doesn't really get cold here in Houston, it's cool enough for this, where you exhale and is a plume of smoke, a plume of fog that comes out of your mouth. Those are the water droplets from your lungs that are now dispersing and freezing in front of you. So that's not water that we're aware of, but it is water that we're losing. And it's actually these water droplets, if you think of in the winter when you're breathing, just how far that plume goes. That's what we're talking about when we're relating it back to the transmission of a virus. If the virus is inside that water droplet, gravity is going to cause that water droplet to settle. And now somebody else comes and touches the surface and then touches their face. They've now infected themselves with the virus. Yeah, so some people, so when you are working out and you are sweating a lot and you're losing water weight, remember, water is the heaviest component in your body. So if you are sweating a lot, if you're doing a real workout, you're sweating buckets, yeah, you're going to lose weight, but it's water weight. You haven't actually lost any like adipose weight. And that's why it's so easy to gain back when you're just manipulating the water weight. And yes, this is going to be like fomites. You guys are learning about fomites in Lab Pro. Fomites are something that allows easier transmission of, well, a parasite or a virus. And it is where you can indirectly infect someone else. So for example, I cough on my computer. Somebody comes and touches my computer has now become a fomite. It's what is going to transmit. If I cough in your face, that's a direct transmission. You're getting it directly from me. Fomite, that's going to be an indirect transmission where I have done something, someone else comes and touches it, and they get infected indirectly from the object. Forgot the other one. What other one?
I could have sworn there was like,
I think you're
Oh, the
talking about
vector.
a bromide or
yeah,
something. It was bromide
Oh.
and bromide. Or
it was one of those.
intro.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I don't know what word you're referring to. We do have a vector, right? Vector is going to be something that carries the illness. So those are the ways that we're going to lose water. Now, we talked about the specific dosage of water, the 30 mLs per pound of body weight per day. Now, if you want just a nice, easy eyeball it, in general, dogs and cats require 2.5 times the amount of water compared with the amount of food that they eat. So if Maisie eats 1/2 cup of food a day, she's going to need to have 1.5 cups of water per day. No, 2.5 cups of water. I can't do math today. If she does 1/2 cup, 1/2, 1/2, 2, yeah, 2.5 cups of water. 2.25 cups. Sorry, Doug's not doing math today. Let me do an easier one. If she eats 1 cup of food, she needs 2.5 cups of water. There's easier math for my brain right now. So if you get 1 bowl of food, you can feed it and offer 2.5 bowls of water. And again, is this accurate? No. This is just to eyeball and see, is the animal drinking enough or are they drinking too much? I lost my mouse. There it is. So what happens if my animal is dehydrated? Well, we have different percentages of dehydration. The first dehydration level is 4 to 5%, which means the overall fluid circulating and needed for normal body function has been reduced by 4 to 5%. The first symptom is going to be a loss of what we call skin turgidity. That's how we say that word, turgidity. No. So Valerie, wet food is going to be different. What we're referring to is dry food. Wet food contains about 75 to 78% water. So we're going to talk about wet food and how we can use that to help combat this dehydration. If we have an animal who's reluctant to drink water, we can supplement their food with a canned food, and that's going to help them not only take in the nutrients they need, but also the water that they need. So when we're talking about the 2.5 times water to food, we're specifically referring to kibble. That's a great question, Val. All right, so what skin turgidity is the elasticity of the skin. When you have an animal, you guys have probably done this in your lab. You check it, you're gonna pull up on their scruff, and it should, I don't know where my camera is, where I should, bam, it should pull right back down. If you are dehydrated, it's gonna be much slower. I've even had some animals, oh my gosh, especially cats, where you scruff the cat, you're drawing blood, you're doing something to them, and when you release the scruff, your fingerprints stay in the scruff. It never snaps back. That's very severe skin turgidity loss. So turgidity, to be turgid, is just the elasticity. When you are 4 to 5% dehydrated, that's starting to affect your connective tissue. Once we've progressed to 7% dehydration, so 7% of your overall hydration water has now been lost. This is where you're still going to have the skin turgidity. In fact, you're going to have the skin turgidity where it doesn't snap back at all. But now your eyes are going to start to sink in and you're going to start to look like you are sick. At 10%, holy shnikey. At 10%, all bets are off. You're going to have the skin turgidity, the eyes sunken. You're going to start seeing things, especially anywhere, even in the 7%. The gums are going to start to feel sticky or tacky because we don't have the saliva. You're going to start getting very thick green mucus accumulating around the eyes. Well, what are your tears? Mucus and fluid, water. Take away the water, I'm left with mucus. And I'm going to start getting this thick mucus gathering around the eyes. The animal's no longer going to be urinating because we simply can't afford the loss. Kidneys are going to start to shut down. They're going to be in lateral recumbency. Their heart rate is going to be weak and thready because the water part of the blood has been lost. Our blood is now super thick, super chunky, and our heart is having trouble pumping that. So it's imperative that we immediately get this animal on IV fluids and start rehydrating them. So other than doing a clinical examination where you check the skin turgidity, you're looking at the eyes, you're looking for the mucus, you're touching the gums to see if they're tacky. Another way that we can determine hydration levels is by performing a test called a PCV. PCV stands for a packed cell volume. So I don't think you guys have probably talked about this yet. So, Maze, I am going to run over you. I promise I am. All right, so when we are looking at a packed cell volume, basically what you're doing is you're drawing a small amount of blood. And we have, obviously I'm not drawing this to scale. This is what we a microhematocrit tube. You guys are going to learn about this, if not in Lab Pro, definitely in ClinPath. Microhematocrit tube.
Yeah, it was in our second lecture a little bit.
Was it? Okay. So obviously they're not this big. They're very, very small. They're about centrifuges. Yes, thank you. They're very, very small, very, very thin. We can fill them up by wicking action, meaning that if you just touch it to a drop of blood, it will automatically wick the blood into the tube. So when I am performing a packed cell volume, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this tube up. This is all blood. So about 3/4 of the way, I'm going to put a little stopper. It's actually a little clay stopper. Oops, let me get a different color here. A little clay stopper right here. And that's going to keep the blood from leaking out of the tube. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it into a centrifuge. Once I have put it through the centrifuge, what that's going to do is it's going to separate out the cells from the fluid. Oops, let me get my red. The cells, being heavy, are going to settle to the bottom, and my fluid being not as heavy is going to settle to the top. Now, what I'm ultimately looking at, the reason why this is called a packed cell volume. Yeah, hematocrit, microhematocrit. Sometimes we even refer to them as a capillary tube. So it goes by many names, but it's all the exact same tube. Capillary, hematocrit, microhematocrit, they're all referring to the same type of tube. So being that we are running a packed cell volume, what we're going to do is measure the percentage of cells. And what we can then do is compare the percentage of cells with the total volume of blood. So if the total volume, cells and fluid, is 100%, it has to be 100%. So our total volume of blood is 100%. If the percentage of my cells is 40%, that tells me what is the percentage of my fluid. So if the percentage of my cells is 40, so I'm just going to subtract 40 from 100, and that's going to give me the percentage of my fluid. If I have an animal, this is erase. It's so satisfying to erase all of this. So here's my tube again, obviously not drawn to scale. Cells, fluid. Now, normal, you want to have approximately a little less than 50-50. Normal for our packed cell volume is going to be somewhere, and it depends on the textbook that you read, but honestly, somewhere between 35, 45%, that's going to be pretty normal. If I have an animal that is dehydrated, what that's going to show is an increase in the percentage of the cells and a decrease in a percentage of the fluid. On the opposite, if I have an animal who is anemic, meaning they are decreased in the number of cells, I am going to see a decrease and an increase. Now, this is called an inverse proportion. And I know I'm getting into math terms and everyone is starting to cringe. Mathy math. But what an inverse proportion means is that when one value goes up, the other value must go down, because we can never have more than 100%. So if the volume of cells goes down, the percentage of fluid has to go up. And so by using this, this is a great test for anemia and hydration. And so we can go in and see what are the actual values. Yeah, so the cells, and again, Haley, it kind of depends. Every textbook has a slightly different range, but on average, normal will be anywhere from 35 to 45%. If it gets even as high as 50, I'm not going to be shocked. But if it starts going less than 35%, I'm going to start to get a little bit worried, because that's now an animal who is anemic. So I'm looking at the cells. This is the percentage that I'm calculating. But in calculating the percentage of my cells, I can then guesstimate the percentage of my fluid. And so that is a packed cell volume. And that's it for water, guys. That's why I combine it with vitamins. That was it for water. All right, so what comments, questions, concerns does anyone have about water? Everybody's okay? You guys are looking kind of weary today. You guys are, you all got basset hound eyes today. Why are you so sleepy today? Are you just ready for the long weekend?
I have to work during the long weekend, so I'm not really looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, I obviously have to work during the long weekend too. Maisie is snoring so loud right now, I can hear her. I can't believe you guys can't. She is snoring away. Apparently this is now her pet, her little pillow. So, all right, so no questions about water. We'll be posting the test on Tuesday about protein. We're going to continue on with our vitamins. However, being that I'm looking at all of these super dead faces staring back at me right now, and I have thrown a ton of information at you right now. Yeah, you guys, I'm kidding myself if I think you're going to absorb any new information at all. I'm kidding myself. Water was pretty easy. Yeah, I don't envy you at all. I am a good girl. I wear my mask when I'm told. And yes, I will be putting the water and the vitamin up on Moodle as soon as I am done here. We are all rooting for Marissa, and any of you that are in any customer service. You are strong and you are amazing. And I am so sorry for your fellow humans who are, oh,